The red light bathes the cabin in a hellish glow, painting our faces, our helmets, our fear. The C-47 shudders, a constant, violent vibration that travels from the floorboards right up through my teeth. Outside, the night explodes in silent, beautiful blossoms of flak. Each one makes the plane lurch, a skip in the engine's drone that tightens every stomach in the stick. The air is thick with the smell of sweat, aviation fuel, and vomit. A few guys are already using their bags, the rustle of waxed paper a miserable counterpoint to the hiss of our static lines. My own line feels like a serpent coiled on my shoulder. I trace its path down to the anchor cable running the length of the plane. One hook, one cable, one jump, simple. Except it's not. The jumpmaster, Sergeant Evans, stands braced against the open door, a silhouette against the chaotic sky. His hand is a white-knuckled grip on the frame. He hasn't said a word in 10 minutes. He doesn't need to. We all know. Hey, hour is breathing down our necks. Beside me, a kid named Miller from Ohio thumbs his cricket clicker. A nervous little asterisk click dash clack asterisk. He's trying to get the rhythm right, the signal. One click asterisk, flash asterisk. The response, if it comes from one of ours, will be 2 clicks asterisk thunder asterisk. That little brass toy is the only thing that'll separate friend from foe in the dark below. Asterisk flash thunder. Asterisk the words echo in my head, a desperate prayer. We're the 101st Airborne, Screaming Eagles. Our job is to drop behind Utah Beach, to seize the causeways and cut off the German counterattack before it can even start. Intel says the Germans, under Rommel's orders, flooded the fields and marshes behind the beaches. We're not just jumping into Normandy. We're jumping into a swamp. A swamp defended by machine guns. The Pathfinders went in first, with their Eureka beacons meant to guide us in. But from the way this bucket is shaking and weaving, I'd bet my last dollar we're miles off course. Evans turns, his face unreadable in the red gloom. He holds up 4 fingers. Then 3, 2. My heart hammers against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat. He screams something, but the wind and engines swallow it whole. It doesn't matter. We know the sequence. Stand up! Hook up! We surge to our feet, a clumsy, overloaded chain of men. I slap my hook onto the anchor line, checking the man in front of me, feeling the slap on my own back from the man behind. The plane steadies for a moment, a cruel tease. Then the light snaps from red to a blinding, brilliant green. Go! The line lurches forward. Man after man disappears into the screaming blackness. Then it's my turn. I'm at the door, 1 step from nothing, and I leap. The prop blast hits me like a fist, a roaring, freezing hurricane that steals my breath. I'm tumbling, end over end counting, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 and then a jolt that nearly tears my shoulders from their sockets. The canopy cracks open above me with the sound of a giant bedsheet tearing. Silk. Beautiful. Life-saving silk. Silence. The engine drone is gone, replaced by the whisper of wind through my risers. Below me is nothing but an inky, featureless void. No beacons, no drop zone markers, just a patchwork of black squares hedgerows, and the glint of moonlight on water. Too much water. I'm coming in fast. The distant shouts in German are getting closer, a constant pressure in the darkness. We have to move. Now. My heart's a drum against my ribs, but my hands are steady. I'm gathering what's left of us, a ghost crew in the Normandy dark. There's a kid from the 82nd, a radio operator, clutching his set like it's the only thing left in the world. Next to him, a grizzled sergeant, his rifle lost in the jump. All he has is a pistol and 8 rounds. Then there's a Pathfinder, his face a mask of frustration. His Eureka beacon, the very thing supposed to guide the planes in, failed. He's just another lost soldier now. We're improvising. It's a clumsy, desperate dance in the shadows. I can't see the grenades, so I'm counting them by feel. 6 fragmentation, 2 Willie Pete's. The sergeant trades a K-bar knife to the Pathfinder for a torn piece of a silk map, the ink still smelling of home. Every hedgerow is a new border, a new potential ambush. We test the old rule. Flash. Then the whispered reply from the darkness ahead. Thunder. It's the only thing separating friend from foe in this maze. You can feel the fear, a cold knot in your stomach, but it's braided tight with resolve. We have a job to do. This whole mess is a testament to chaos. The jump was a disaster. I can still feel the violent tear of the slipstream ripping the leg bag right off me, my main equipment gone into the night. We saw the heavy bundles, the ones with the machine guns and mortar, dropped from the plane separately. each a prayer sent into the black. Most missed their drop zones entirely. They said the sticks, our units of paratroopers, would be dropped together. Instead, we were scattered like seeds across miles of this godforsaken bocage country. We are islands in an ocean of uncertainty. Suddenly, a shape detaches from a stone wall. We raise our weapons, clicks echoing in the silence. But it's an old man, a French farmer, his face a roadmap of worry. He gestures, whispering, his words a lifeline in the dark. Sainte-Mère-Église, he points down a sunken lane, his finger trembling. Allemands. Part 2. Germans everywhere? He vanishes as quickly as he appeared. A little later, desperate for water, we risk a farmhouse. A young woman, no older than my sister, emerges from the gloom. She says nothing, her eyes wide with a mixture of terror and pity. As she pours cool well water into our helmets, a crucifix on the wall behind her glints in the faint moonlight. A silent blessing, or a quiet plea for our souls. The chaos isn't just here. The whole peninsula is on fire. Far to the north, the sky pulses with an angry orange glow. We hear later it was Sainte-Mère-Église, where gliders crashed and burning buildings lit up the paratroopers as they fell, making them easy targets. But there are small victories too. A rumor passes through the shadows, whispered from one lost group to another. A patrol from the 82nd has seized the crossroads at WWII Plain. At the same time, we know the enemy is waking up. The German 709th and 91st Air Landing Divisions are stirring from their beds, their NCOs screaming them into formation. The hornet's nest has been kicked. Every shadow plays tricks on you. A rustle in the leaves makes you freeze, finger tightening on the trigger. A silhouette moves against the hedgerow, and you're a breath away from firing before a familiar helmet shape resolves itself. It's one of our own. Then, a flare bursts overhead, a malevolent white star. We all drop, frozen, exposed in its harsh, unforgiving light. It feels like an eternity, every detail of the ditch we're in seared into my brain. The light dies, plunging us back into a deeper, more profound darkness. We are blind, but we are alive. A new sound begins to dominate the night, cutting through the distant shouts and the chirping of the crickets. It's a low. We hit the ground running, barely a chance to find our bearings before we were pulled into another fight. The air still tasted of cordite and damp earth. A lieutenant, barely older than me, all calm intensity, gathered the few of us who hit the ground running. Barely a chance to find our bearings before we were pulled into another fight. The air still tasted of cordite and damp earth. A lieutenant, barely older than me, all calm intensity, gathered the few of us he could find. He knelt, sketching a plan in the Normandy mud with a stick. "All right," he said, his voice low and steady. "Listen up. Before us, hidden by thick hedgerows, was Brecourt Manor, that could find." He knelt, sketching a plan in the Normandy mud with a stick. "All right," he said, his voice low and steady. "Listen up. Before us, hidden by thick hedgerows, was Brecourt Manor. The real problem wasn't the manor itself, but what was dug in around it. 4 German 105mm howitzers set in a winding trench system. We could hear them firing, a rhythmic, deadly cough that made the ground tremble. Each boom was another shell screaming towards Utah Beach, right where the real problem wasn't the manor itself, but what was dug in around it. 4 German 105mm howitzers set in a winding trench system. We could hear them firing, a rhythmic, deadly cough that made the ground tremble. Each boom was another shell screaming towards Utah Beach, right where the 4th Infantry was trying to push inland. Those guns were tearing up the causeways, pinning our guys down. Naval bombardment couldn't silence them. They were too well dug in. It was up to us. The lieutenant's plan was audacious, maybe even insane for a handful of scattered paratroopers. We 4th Infantry was trying to push inland. Those guns were tearing up the causeways, pinning our guys down. Naval bombardment couldn't silence them. They were too well dug in, it was up to us. The lieutenant's plan was audacious, maybe even insane for a handful of scattered paratroopers. We had our M1 South, a few grenades, and limited bazooka rounds. We'd managed to snag a German MG-42 from a previous scuffle. That was our ace. "You 3, he pointed. "Get that MG set up here. Give us a base of fire. Keep their heads down." The rest of us had our M1 South, a few grenades, and limited bazooka rounds. We'd managed to snag a German MG-42 from a previous scuffle. That was our ace. You three, he pointed, get that MG set up here. Give us a base of fire. Keep their heads down. The rest of us were on assault. We moved low and fast, crawling through ditches thick with stinging nettles that tore at our exposed skin. The M42 opened up its distinctive, high-pitched rip cutting through the air. That was our cue. We flanked right, using the hedgerow as cover. The noise was overwhelming on assault. We moved low and fast, crawling through ditches thick with stinging nettles that tore at our exposed skin. The M42 opened up, its distinctive, high-pitched rip cutting through the air. That was our cue. We flanked right, using the hedgerow as cover. The noise was overwhelming, the chattering MG, the crack of rifles, the thudding booms from the gun pits just ahead. Names were whispered, just making sure the man next to you was still there. I saw one of our guys freeze, his eyes wide. The lieutenant crawled over, put a firm hand on his shoulder, gave the chattering MG, the crack of rifles, the thudding booms from the gun pits just ahead. Names were whispered, just making sure the man next to you was still there. I saw one of our guys freeze, his eyes wide. The lieutenant crawled over, put a firm hand on his shoulder, gave a slight nod. That was all it took. The kids started moving again. We reached the edge of the first gun pit. The trench was a chaotic maze of timber, sandbags, and discarded shell casings. The lieutenant gave the signal. 3 of us pulled the pins on our grenades. He counted down with the sun climbs, but its warmth is a lie. We're running, stumbling through the Norman countryside, not towards some grand objective, but towards a narrow strip of stone and mud called the La Fiere causeway. The fields on either side are flooded, shimmering silver under the morning light, looking more like lakes than pastures. The landscape is surreal. White parachutes hang from the branches of apple trees like captured ghosts, silent witnesses to the chaos of the drop. There's no time to think, no time to catch your breath. We're thrown into a shallow ditch alongside other paratroopers from the 82nd. The air is thick with the smell of wet earth and cordite. Across the flooded fields, we see them. Figures in field gray, advancing methodically along the banks. The first crack of a rifle echoes across the water, and suddenly the world explodes. An NCO shoves a long metal tube into my hands. A bazooka. He slaps 2 rockets onto the muddy ground beside me. Make him count, he grunts, his face a mask of grime and exhaustion. You miss, we're cooked. A pocketful of luck. That's all we have. The ground starts to tremble. From the trees opposite, the distinct clatter and grind of steel tracks emerges. A panzer, then another. Light tanks and assault guns from Panzerabteilung 100, nosing out of the woods, their cannons searching for targets. Machine gun fire rips across the water, stitching lines of spray that dance and skip towards our position. Dirt kicks up into my face. Someone screams. The first tank lurches forward onto the causeway. It feels like the whole world is holding its breath. The guy next to me, a kid with frightened eyes, shoulders his own bazooka. He fires. The rocket streaks out, a plume of white smoke, but it flies high, impacting the stone bridge with a hollow clang and a shower of sparks. A failed volley. The tank doesn't even slow down. It's my turn. My hands are slick with sweat. I try to steady the tube on the edge of the ditch, the tank's form filling the crude sight. I squeeze the trigger. The backblast kicks up a cloud of dust and grass. For a second, I can't see anything. Then, through the haze, a flash of orange on the tank's flank. It grinds, slews sideways, and with a terrible hissing sound comes to a dead stop, black smoke pouring from the hit. A cheer goes up along our thin line, but it's cut short by the chatter of an MG-42. A runner, trying to make it from one foxhole to the next, suddenly crumples. He falls face first into the mud, a sheaf of letters spilling from his jacket, scattering like fallen leaves. There's no time to mourn. The German infantry is closing in, using the disabled tank as cover. We're firing everything we have. The click of an empty M1 Garand clip becomes the rhythm of the battle. We're being squeezed. This little causeway, this strip of road, is the cork in the bottle. If we lose it, the entire Utah beachhead could be sealed off. If we hold, the 4th Infantry Division can break out. Just as the gray uniforms get terrifyingly close, a new sound cuts through the din. A high-pitched whistle followed by an earth-shattering crump. Then another, and another. Our own. Somewhere down the line, a lieutenant with a smashed, bloody nose is screaming coordinates into a field phone, walking the shells right onto the German positions. The ground heaves, the air fills with sulfur and screams. The attack falters, breaks, and the Germans pull back into the trees. We get a moment, just a moment, to breathe. The mud sucks at my boots, a constant greedy pull. A paratrooper a few feet away has his head buried in his sleeve, his shoulders shaking. I don't know if he's praying or crying. Maybe both. The spectacle of war is grand from a distance, but up close it's just mud, fear, and the smell of reed rot. The day bleeds away. Twilight paints the sky in shades of purple and bruised orange, and then the rain begins. A cold, miserable drizzle that soaks through my uniform and chills me to the bone. Ammunition is critically low. I check the magazine in my rifle. One left. Across the flooded fields, a mist is rising, shrouding the tree line. Another German push is forming out there. We can feel it. Then a new sound reaches us. A low, distant growl of engines. It's coming from the direction of the beaches. I stare into the rain-soaked darkness, my heart pounding in my chest, unable to tell if it's the sound of rescue or the sound of our final ruin. As the first rays of dawn struggled through the thick Normandy fog, the world was reduced to sound and shadow. The low, menacing rumble of German armor grew louder, the clank of treads echoing off the flooded fields. Along the narrow causeway, American paratroopers, dug into waterlogged craters and behind slain cattle, strained their eyes into the gray mist. Then, they appeared silhouettes, hulking and distorted, materializing from the fog like ghosts. Panzers, followed by waves of grenadiers. The German final assault had begun. The world erupted. American machine guns tore the morning apart, their tracers a furious red stitchwork against the gray canvas. Mortar coughed, sending shells arcing into the compressed German ranks. The air became a solid wall of noise, a physical pressure of explosions and ricochets. The American line, a fragile collection of exhausted men, buckled under the sheer weight of the attack, but it did not break. A two-man bazooka team, sprinting low between shell holes, fired a rocket that glanced off a Panzer's turret. Undeterred, they reloaded, their movements frantic but precise. Further down the line, a 57mm anti-tank gun, its crew serving it with desperate speed, fired point-blank into the lead German vehicle. A paratrooper, a neat hole punched through the canteen on his hip, ignored the water soaking his leg and continued feeding an ammunition belt into his. .30 caliber, his jaw set, his eyes fixed on the approaching shapes. Then the tide turned. A perfectly placed bazooka round found the vulnerable side of a Panzer, which shuddered to a halt and began to burn, its black smoke a victory banner against the pale sky. The sight of it sent a jolt of adrenaline through the defenders. Another tank, its tracks severed, slewed sideways, blocking the causeway. The German infantry advance faltered, their momentum broken against this wall of fire and steel. Suddenly, white flags, handkerchiefs, strips of torn uniform began to prickle the hedgerows. The assault had been smashed. And in that sudden ringing silence, a new sound emerged. A low, distant engine growl that grew steadily stronger. It wasn't the sound of German armor. It was the sound of hope. Over the rise, inching forward on the very road these men had bled for, came the first trucks of the 4th Infantry Division. Relief, profound and absolute, washed over the paratroopers. The link-up was made. The beachhead was secure. In the aftermath, the chaos of the night gave way to quiet moments of connection. Men who had been faceless voices in the dark now shared a canteen, their grime-streaked faces breaking into exhausted smiles. A French farmer, his eyes filled with a gratitude too deep for words, carefully pinned a sprig of apple blossom onto the filthy jump jacket of a young lieutenant. This small act of beauty, amidst the wreckage of war, was a symbol of what they had fought for. The strategic impact was immense. Because these scattered groups of paratroopers dropped miles from their intended zones, had used initiative, and raw courage to seize bridges, silence artillery batteries, and sow chaos deep behind the Atlantic Wall, Utah. Beach became the most successful American landing of D-Day. The casualties were low, the advance inland swift. It wasn't a clean victory. The darkness had been filled with friendly fire. Men had been dropped into flooded marshes and drowned, and entire plane loads of their comrades were simply gone. But airborne doctrine was built for this. It demanded that individual soldiers and small units act independently, turning the chaos of a scattered drop into an advantage. Their grit transformed a flawed plan into a stunning success. As the sun climbed higher, burning away the last of the fog, The sounds of battle were replaced. The cold air no longer carried the snap of silk parachutes or the ominous click of a child's toy cricket. Instead, it was filled with the steady, reassuring drumbeat of convoys, trucks, tanks, and jeeps rolling inland, carrying the might of an army deep into France. A new phase of the war had begun, built on the foundation laid by a few thousand men in the Normandy darkness. The small groups in impossible places had bent the course of history.